Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly fascinating narrative from a source document titled The Prefix Paradox. This story completely reshapes how we think about exhaustion, personal boundaries, and success. It follows Ashley, a working mother who is absolutely driven by this fierce conviction that flawless discipline always pays off in the end. But despite her relentless hustle, she is just drowning in exhaustion. Today, we're going to explore how she used what is honestly a super unique combination of linguistics and mathematics to cure her burnout and literally rewrite the rules of her life.
So the whole thing starts with this midnight realization. Ashley is sitting at her desk, just completely drained after a grueling 15-hour day of juggling work and household logistics, right? And she writes down the word extraordinary. Her analytical brain starts deconstructing it into two parts. You have ordinary, which means the common, the routine, the standard, and then you have extra, meaning an addition, or just more of something. She realizes that if you think about it mathematically, adding extra to ordinary should logically just mean a heavier, way more intense version of the exact same boring routine. It's this wild paradox that hooks her right in, and honestly, it hooks us right into the core of her struggle too.
Section 1. The burden of addition.
Now, Ashley held on to this fierce belief that if she just pushed through her exhaustion, all her flawless discipline would eventually pay off. But let's actually compare that theory to the dynamic inside her home. On one side, you have what we can call Jack's corporate audit. Her husband, Jack, treats their marriage like a literal business transaction. He drops these meticulously printed spreadsheets on her keyboard, tracking her miscellaneous spending and demanding she increase her household contributions just because her earnings went up. But then, look at Ashley's invisible labor. Jack is totally blind to the massive logistical weight he adds to her day. She's the one managing his life, driving the kids all over town, and carrying the heavy emotional baggage of his past infidelity. He doesn't even pause to ask how her day was, he just keeps piling more weight onto it.
And this creates such a stark, painful contrast. On the left side, you've got her flawed theory, this idea that taking on all these endless additions, working late, managing Jack's demands, will eventually magically lead to success. But on the right side is her actual reality. She is straight up drowning. She is sacrificing these precious weekday moments with her sleeping kids just to keep up with Jack's exhausting additions. She's doing the ordinary every single day with absolute flawless discipline, but it's completely crushing her.
Section 2. The negative prefix. So how in the world does she break out of this cycle? Well, to understand her breakthrough, we first have to look at Jack's highly selective behavior. Consider this hypocrisy for a second. On chaotic, busy weekdays, Jack demands hair oil massages for his stiff neck and expects his closet to be perfectly organized with fresh, re-ironed white shirts. But then, come Saturday morning, suddenly he claims to be way too sick and exhausted to help with the heavy grocery run or take the kids to their academy. Yet, miraculously, by Saturday evening, a text from his buddies lights up his phone, his fatigue totally vanishes, and he heads out for drinks. He treats Ashley's time as this endless resource he's perfectly entitled to mine without ever acting like a supportive partner.
This blatant hypocrisy leads to a massive breakthrough for Ashley at her hidden whiteboard late one night. She starts thinking about prefixes again, specifically negative prefixes, words that start with dis, mal, or un. In linguistics, these little elements don't just add some new flavor to a root word. They completely invert it. They nullify its value entirely. And that is when it hits her. Jack isn't an extra addition to her life, he is a negative prefix attached right to the front of it.
This is absolutely crucial to understand. Think about how a root word interacts with a negative prefix. You take a strong word like regard, and it becomes disregard. Respect becomes disrespect. Content becomes malcontent. It doesn't matter how much inherent value the root word holds on its own, the second that prefix is attached, its entire meaning is flipped upside down. Ashley realizes that no matter how much incredible value she creates as the provider, the mother, and the disciplined professional, she is the root word here. Jack's actions function as the dis or un that mathematically reduces all of her efforts to zero.
Which brings us to one of the most powerful quotes from the entire source document. He thinks he is an addition, but he isn't an extra, he is a negative prefix. Boom. With this realization, the entire dynamic shifts. Ashley's exhausting maternal guilt and sadness, they transform into this strategic, ice-cold focus. Because if a prefix has the power to change an equation, then she has the power to change how she reacts to it.
Okay, let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds. The subtraction experiment.
This is where it gets really good, because this is where Ashley takes her linguistic theory right off the whiteboard and applies it directly to her life. She decides to start treating Jack's demands not as absolute commands, but as optional modifiers. Step 1, deny the labor. When Jack demands his usual weekday massage and freshly ironed shirt, she just calmly refuses, saying she has a strict project deadline. She doesn't apologize, she literally just removes herself from the equation. Step 2, reclaim the capital. Instead of burning her energy on household maintenance for him, she pours it straight into her dream business. And get this, in just 3 nights, she launches her website and secures 2 independent clients. Then, step 3, shift the structure. She holds the line on her finances.
And all of this leads to her new, brilliant formula. Root word, which is Ashley, multiplied by 0 engagement equals uncompromised value. When Jack tries to run another one of his spreadsheet audits to recalculate her household share just because she spent some money registering her new business, Ashley uses this exact logic. She calmly states her fixed contributions remain the same and shuts down his interrogation with 0 emotional engagement. Her value remains totally uncompromised.
Section 4. The syntax of spite.
Now, you know a major structural shift like this isn't going to go unchallenged, right? Ashley is currently grinding away at her global multinational corporate job, syncing late at night with U.S. time zones. One evening, Jack literally hides in the shadows of the hallway and uses their 8-year-old son to deliver this incredibly cruel passive-aggressive joke. He has the boy ask if mommy's quote-unquote shop is closed yet and if she's ready to pack up her daily hustle. Jack is deliberately weaponizing words like shop and hustle to trivialize her high-stakes corporate career. He's actively trying to trigger her maternal guilt by making her real, global work sound chaotic and neglectful.
But Ashley? She doesn't break. She warmly comforts her son, gets him off to bed, and then turns and confronts Jack with his absolute mic drop of logic. In linguistics, a prefix only works if the root word allows it to stick. She tells him that she is the root word of this family. She provides and she delivers. His attempts to modify her meaning with cheap insults, they just don't work anymore. In fact, they only serve to define his own insecurity.
Section 5. The extraordinary equation.
And that perfectly sets the stage for our final chapter. Let's look at how Ashley's unyielding discipline finally yields its mathematical result. All those late nights syncing with the U.S. time zone, all those times she refused to let Jack break her focus, it all pays off massively. Her corporate results are just stellar. She shatters global expectations, earns a huge promotion to a leadership role, and, best of all, she receives a massive performance bonus. This bonus isn't just a nice little pat on the back either. It is the exact financial capital she needs to seed her independent venture and gain total autonomy. A real game changer.
But true to form, Jack makes one last desperate attempt to act as a modifier with his master spreadsheet. His intention? To just absorb her bonus to wipe out their joint liabilities and bump up her share of the kids' fees. But Ashley holds an absolute boundary. She shuts him down with cold, emotionless logic. The bonus is allocated for her business enterprise. The household split remains exactly as it was, period.
This is the moment Ashley finally wipes her whiteboard clean. She used to believe that flawed theory, that extra meant adding tasks and adding tasks meant success. But the actual linguistic reality, extra really means outside of, beyond, and completely independent of the ordinary. Jack isn't an addition that elevates her. He's a constraint trying to keep her average. By successfully subtracting him as a modifier, she finally achieves uncompromised value.
And this brings up a really fascinating question for all of us to think about today. Who or what is the negative prefix in your equation trying to keep you ordinary? What routines, demands, or maybe even people are you allowing to act as a dis or an un in your life, totally nullifying the incredible value you are working so hard to build? What do you need to subtract right now to protect your root value?
Ultimately, Ashley leaves Jack with one final, unmovable ultimatum. The syntax of my life is no longer up for negotiation. With that, she walks down the hall to be completely present with her children. She stopped letting the world modify her meaning, and by doing so, she finally became extraordinary. It's a brilliant reminder that sometimes success isn't at all about what you add to your life. It's about the modifiers you have the courage to subtract. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will leave you to think about the syntax of your own life.